In TF2, there are a lot of classes doing a lot of things at once. Every class is doing their best to sling enough projectiles and spam at the enemy team to try and win the round. Spy, on the other hand, is very different, and not in the artistic fancy, "Oh look, he's so sneaky and stealthy." Instead, I mean that a spy player's only thoughts are often,
"Oh, man. Oh no. Your precious sandwich won't save you now. What?
He has a low health pool, low damage output compared to other classes, and is often killed in seconds after being noticed by even a single member of the enemy team. Any player with even a little bit of time in TF2 starts to catch on to his tricks, turning around every so often to check their backs, and spy checking around here and there. While most other classes' counters are often very nuanced or non-specific, Spy's biggest counter is just game sense. The more time your enemy has playing the game, the less likely you are to do well playing Spy. The only real counter to this while playing Spy is outthinking every opponent, even the smartest ones. Things like knowledge of both maps and everything about the individual classes and how they work are invaluable, almost necessary to know sometimes. And that nuance and skill required to play Spy well is what this video is all about. So starting off, everybody knows that Spy's goal in a pub is to stab as many enemies as possible. However, none of that is really possible without utilizing the tools Spy has available to him, most notably the Invisawatch, which lets you go invisible to the enemy for a short amount of time. Getting behind the enemy with invisibility is a much easier said than done task though. You need to know where the enemy team is gathered so you know when to start your cloak. Then you proceed through the enemy team without getting bumped by any players, and finally you need to find a safe spot to decloak so you're both out of sight as well as in position to get to your target. These steps themselves are pretty simple, but what separates a good Spy player from a better one is how good you are improvising when things go wrong. Because they will.
What the f***? They have an army of default engineers! There's like 4 of them! There's like 5 default engineers up there!
While backstabbing and the like are often where people consider movement to be the most important, being able to maneuver around enemies without getting touched can be difficult, especially when they're in combat, strafing left and right and consistently firing their weapons. These points are where knowledge of common player habits are very important. For example, if you notice that an enemy is at low health, it's likely they'll run from their current position over to a source of health. Being able to account for these things for several players at once isn't easy. In fact, it's why so many spies in pubs seem to run right into you while they're invisible, when in reality not doing just that can be very tough, even for experienced players. If you're actually able to get behind the enemy, decloaking safely is the next step. Decloaking in itself obviously isn't hard, just pressing the right mouse button, but the real hard part is not dying immediately afterwards. There are 2 ways an enemy can notice you uncloaking, the first of which is through sight. Seeing a spy decloak is pretty self-explanatory, and thus even new players are unlikely to miss it. So just finding a wall or prop to hide behind can be more than enough. Where more game sense can come in handy though is instead hiding the sound of the decloak. Skilled players will hear any nearby spies decloaking, but if their ears are instead preoccupied with, then you're probably safe to decloak right behind them and stab. Did you know though that Spy has yet another tool at his disposal to become completely invisible to the enemy? It seems like that was just a funny gag, and it was, but it does raise a very important fact that many don't consider. Taking advantage of physical map geometry to stay hidden is a very powerful tactic. Let's say, for example, that you're a spy doing your spy thing when you notice a lone enemy medic in the open, with his back turned to you. Normally, most players would walk in a straight line towards the medic to get the kill as fast as possible. This approach can be effective and work fine most of the time, but the main issue it introduces is risk. While you're walking towards them, there's a lot of time for the enemy to either turn around and notice you, or for one of their teammates to do the same. However, if the spy instead favors walking this way towards the enemy, he puts a wall between himself and his target. While it might be a little slower, being able to minimize the amount of opportunity the enemy has to notice you is the most important thing a spy can do. Getting behind the enemy unnoticed and even just walking towards them can be difficult enough, but the hardest problems arise when it comes to actually doing what you're playing Spy to do. Backstabbing. Just like everything else discussed so far, it's easy to overlook how complex something as simple as meleeing someone in the back can be. Any decent player in TF2 is going to be moving and strafing unpredictably to keep their opponents guessing. And that includes you, Spyman. Because of this, it's very common for a spy to die even if they do successfully get behind the enemy in melee range. Just like before, knowledge of how enemies in certain classes move is often very important, and even then, things are bound to go wrong, and when they do, this is where trick stabbing should really come into play. While some gamers, like me, prefer to just go for trick stabs by default to be flashy, in reality it's much smarter to only use them as a last resort. When there's a heavy who will have you dead in half a second, that's when you need to pull something out of your pocket. Either you trick the enemy into showing you their back, or you're dead. And this scenario comes up very often because once you get a kill, their teammates are going to be mad. Despite that though, it's important to remember that a player, no matter how good they are, can only process so much information at a time. And especially during a panic situation like this, they often aren't going to make the smartest move. That panicked feeling the enemy feels for a split second after they notice a teammate was stabbed, that's what you need to be able to take advantage of and recognize. A pretty good example to use is this clip here. At this point, I can tell that there's at least a few players on the cart indicated by the ×3 on my HUD at the bottom. Not only that, but I know that they're going to be distracted because my team will likely be challenging them on the cart, taking the enemy's attention away from any spies behind them. So I jump right down onto the cart. Right away, I notice a friendly Demo Knight challenging the blue players on the left, so I know they're going to be shooting and looking towards him. So I instead move to the right, knowing that they'll be facing away from me. First, I stab the heavy. Now at this point, the Pyro is the most clear threat to me here, and he might notice the heavy being backstabbed. Luckily for me though, he isn't able to process everything in time, and I'm able to get the stab on him as well. The last remaining enemy in the group, the Demo Man, knows he's in some trouble since there's now a Pyro approaching him, already using his flamethrower. It's also safe to assume at this point that the Demo Man has also seen me. Turning towards the Demo Man, I can see his health is going down really quickly and he knows he isn't going to make it out of here alive, so he tries to cut his losses by at least taking me out with a melee hit. Because of that, he's an easy target to aim at and I land a final, albeit a bit unnecessary headshot on him with my Ambassador. Remember, all this happened in the span of less than 5 seconds. It shows how important it is to be able to quickly recognize every way the enemy reacts to you and in return, react yourself. The same logic also applies to situations with just one enemy as well. Being able to consistently think faster than your opponent can save you very often. Here in this upward clip, I round this corner and immediately see a Demo coming towards me. Since I have the kunai equipped, I have only 70 health and just one pipe will kill me, so I know that if I don't kill him quickly, he'll get me instead. The Demo does end up noticing me before I stab him, but since I notice that he's still running towards me due to his delayed reaction, I'm able to get a very quick stab with a flick towards his back. Oftentimes a situation like that will end up getting you killed no matter how fast you are, but just knowing what your options are to escape any given situation, as well as how quickly you recognize those options, will save you more often than you'd think. Now, I'm by no means a very good spy. For every clip you see here where I get a nice stab or outplay the enemy, there's 5 others where I just fall flat and die looking like a moron. But the reason I die so often is because that I know for every 10, even 20 times I die, there will be that one time where I wipe half the team in only a few seconds. And that feeling of wiping several power classes in a row by outsmarting all of them is unmatched by almost anything else you can feel in this game. All of that together culminates into one word that I think describes Spy better than anything else. Spy is a weak class, argued by many to even be the weakest, and I'd often agree with that statement. But that doesn't mean he can't have the same potential as any other. With backstabs always being an instant kill, and there being a little downtime between knife swings, Spy often has the tools to escape from nearly any situation in the game. Especially with knives like the kunai, where if a Spy plays his cards right, he can go toe to toe with almost an entire enemy team. The best clip I can use to demonstrate this potential, even at the top level, is one from Stabby. Before showing the clip, I can't recommend enough that you check out Stabby's channel if you're all interested in TF2 or good videos in general. His commentary videos in particular are some of my favorites on YouTube as a whole, and they're a really fascinating watch if you want something to look at like this. For this clip in particular though, I'll first show it in real time.
Gentlemen? Bloody spy! Oh! Help me defend! I do believe I'm on fire.
Come on, tough guy!
Oh dear, I've made quite a mess.
It's a lot of stuff to take in, and I'm gonna go through it one more time, so bear with me. Before he gets any stabs, we can see that there's a heavy, a demo, a soldier, and a medic all on the cart, and none of his teammates are immediately nearby, so it's clear that this is a do-or-die situation in which failing likely means losing the round. First, he goes for the heavy, a smart move because he's both a valuable pick and the closest target to him. Immediately after, he knows that the demo and the medic are likely going to have already seen him, so going for a stab on them right after isn't a good idea. Instead, he strafes around far enough from the cart to stab anyone trying to push to the left, and instantly connects a stab on the soldier right as they try to figure out what's going on. He then pulls out his dead ringer a few times while juking out this demo, stalling the cart for as long as he can. The demo triggers the dead ringer, but he knows he can't stop defending, so he immediately decloaks. Fortunately, a friendly sniper soon arrives to help with the demo, right as the enemy pyro starts to run towards the cart to take care of the spy. Moving unpredictably, he's able to get a very quick matador on the pyro right as his dead ringer recharges from an ammo pickup, which allows him to survive the afterburn. After all this, his team arrives to help and the team maintains their defense. Now at this point, me going through yet another clip may seem redundant as I've already done it a few times, but the raw amount of different things I have to mention during each replaying of each clip demonstrates just how many things a spy has to think about to make a play like this. So many players, different factors, random pieces of knowledge acquired through experience. Everything about an individual player's skill in TF2 is tested in these moments, and they demonstrate exactly what the title reads, the amount of nuance and potential the spy class has. It can be frustrating, you'll die a lot, sometimes you think you have even just a single kill on your hands, but things fall apart. Sometimes everything lines up right, and sometimes you get in way over your head and you know there's only one way out of a bad situation, and you just... Hello, if you're hearing this, that means you watched the whole video, and thank you a lot for that. It means a lot that people would enjoy anything that I put out, any kind of content, so thank you a lot for that. If you did enjoy that much, please do share it around, post it in like a Discord or whatever. It helps a lot, like a lot. Like, it's kind of crazy, but if you want to help in other ways, subscribe, like, or whatever, you know, the normal YouTube stuff. I won't yell at you if you don't, but it'd be kind of cool. I'd smile. Yeah, it's been a while since my last video, but or last big video anyway. And this one was really fun to work on. It went pretty well. I'm actually pretty happy with it. Unlike my other two videos that are kind of big, they're still good, but I'm not as happy with them. But this one turned out great, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Yeah, I don't know. That should be it. Peace.